Tom Hunter.
And I'm Betsy DeBoer. West Virginia Press InSight focuses on policy and impact, not politics or personalities.
Today we're taking a look at the following issues. The 2020 legislative session starts January 8th. That's less than 2 months away. What major pieces of legislation can we expect in 2020 at the state capitol? The West Virginia legislature holds interim meetings throughout the year to explore topics of interest and to prepare for the regular session. We'll look at how you can attend the session from home. In our in-depth segment, we'll take a closer look at frauds and scams, a growing problem here in the Mountain State and nationwide. We'll look at how West Virginians can avoid these problems.
WVU's Academic Media Days are an invaluable resource for reporters and the news media. We'll look at how the university shares its experts and data. And in our tourism segment, we'll look at ATV trails and off-road fun in West Virginia.
Hi, I'm Don Smith.
And I'm Betsy DeBoer, and this is West Virginia Press InSight.
The 2020 West Virginia legislative session starts January 8th. That's less than 2 months. What major pieces of legislation can we expect in the 2020 session? And how can the West Virginia media prepare to cover those pieces of legislation and new bills? That's what we'll look at today.
We'll take a look at possible legislation and preview the state media's annual legislative look ahead.
Discussions with legislative leaders this week made two things clear. Some of the legislation that we're going to see will be very familiar, but also they have big goals for this year. Two of the biggest pieces expected to be addressed this session are tax reform and addressing the inventory and equipment tax, and economic development, as the state expects to review the incentives and other packages available to attract industry to West Virginia, especially downstream industries in the natural gas area.
Today we have Rebecca MacPhail with the West Virginia Manufacturers Association and Ann Blankenship with the West Virginia Oil and Natural Gas Association to comment on those issues.
Rebecca, and your industries and your associations have been proponents of this type of legislation, and we've seen legislation like this in past sessions. What does it mean for your members in your industry to hear that these are priorities for the 2020 session? Rebecca?
Sure, Don. I think we started hearing back during the Chamber's annual business summit from legislative leaders, from the governor, that the inventory, machinery, and equipment tax was something at the top of everyone's list. And of course, we've long held that that's an impediment to growing jobs, particularly in the manufacturing industry, which is very capital intensive. So to our members, we're excited. We're trying to work with not just legislative leaders, but also stakeholders, because we know that repeal of that impacts our county governments and our schools and our municipal governments. So we're trying to think about that in a way that isn't creating a hole in local budgets, but compels us or propels us to a different level in terms of being able to attract and retain existing manufacturing and invest in manufacturing in the state.
In previous sessions, it seemed that there was support for the concept, but the things you were bringing up, the how do we replace this tax revenue, was really one of the stalling points that stopped legislation like this. Has there been a lot of discussion about that plan yet, or is it just something that we'll work through for the session? Well,
I think we'll work through that before the session. At least it's my understanding that all of that is being evaluated now, looking at the numbers, looking at growth estimates for revenue moving forward in ways that the stakeholders can remain whole, but that we don't increase taxes while doing that. So it's a complex issue. It requires a constitutional amendment, as you know, lots of moving parts, but I do think there's a will that we've not seen, at least in my history with the WVMA, to get this done and to get it done in 2020.
Okay. And I know that everyone is still watching the Dilly's Bottom plant location in the Northern Panhandle to see about a cracker plant. And the big discussion on the oil and gas industry, at least in West Virginia, is once everything's up and running, all the downstream industry possibilities. In terms of seeing the incentives and the ideas of helping businesses come in, how does that appeal to your members?
Well, we're very excited to hear that this is going to be an initiative this year. Again, Rebecca had mentioned the Chamber annual meeting this year. It was at that time that the governor announced his new initiative to focus on downstream and to create the Petrochemical Task Force, which is doing just that. And they're looking at the opportunities and how we can make things come together really through an economic development type process to be able to bring those manufacturing facilities and grow that area as well. We're sitting on one of the largest oil and natural gas reserves in the world, so we really need to take full advantage of that. On the production side, we're continuing to produce more gas every year for the past decade, which is really amazing since we're at a low price environment and have been for a while. So the industry has become very efficient, and we're able to keep producing. So what we really need to do is take full advantage of that opportunity, especially with our natural gas liquids that are also very competitively priced, and the fact that the legislature and the governor are recognizing that and recognize that that is a great opportunity for the state and to grow other industries such as the manufacturing industry. It makes perfect sense for us. It's been an initiative for us for a while now, so we're very glad to hear that that's going to be a focus.
Well, I know, not just in the oil and gas industry, but across the state, attracting business is important, and incentives are a big thing. And if I remember the numbers right, and forgive me if this is correct, but I think the state of Ohio has already spent $100 million in site development and things for Dilly's Bottom to get that plan, and they haven't received it officially yet. It seems very competitive. Rebecca, and you can both address this, that every industry that's out there, every state is really going after the opportunity to host those, bring them in, offer them tax packages, offer them site improvements. Do you see that? Is that something you worry about?
I think it's something that we pay attention to. We in West Virginia, when I meet with new companies that are siting here, or even some of our members who are new to West Virginia in the last decade, one of the first questions that I ask is, why did you come to West Virginia? Because I think it's important that we look at the reasons that we have the companies that we do. But to your point, now we're competing regionally for this downstream development. And you look at Ohio and you look at Pennsylvania, and they do have a more robust system for incentives. They have more favorable tax treatments for manufacturing, so those are things that we evaluate. But I do think that we have an advantage because we are small. What I hear so frequently is I get attention in West Virginia that I don't get in other places. So we have to figure out the right combination of being able to provide those incentives, but to continue to have that interaction with companies that are coming here or considering being here.
Anything in particular that your people say, we really need this type of support from the state if we're considering West Virginia?
I think just the whole package of incentives and business-friendly tax treatment, the inventory tax idea is very much tied into that. And, there are a lot of things that affect the oil and gas industry on a federal level as well that are a priority for us. But one of the things here in West Virginia that we are behind with our surrounding states competitively is the development of natural gas-fired electric generation facilities. Both Ohio and Pennsylvania have made great advancements in that area and have, in some instances, close to 100 facilities. I think in Pennsylvania, Ohio has quite a few. West Virginia has no new facilities in that area. And it's not just an opportunity to produce the gas and keep it here, but it's also a huge economic development tool because of the low price electricity that it generates, which affects manufacturing industries. I mean, some industrial facilities, that's their largest cost is electricity. So if we're able to lower that cost and use that as an incentive as well to bring folks into West Virginia, I think that is obviously another priority for us and should be for the state, and I think is at this point. So we're excited to hear that.
We also expect bills addressing broadband expansion, stopping opioid abuse and helping those struggling with addiction, second chance opportunities to help former prison inmates find work and cut down on recidivism, improving the foster care system and addressing homeless children issues, and also considering the intermediate appellate court.
There are so many of those issues that just work on the quality of life in West Virginia, and it seems everyone's interested in that. I think that'll be helpful. The state media will get an official preview of legislative goals coming up January 3rd at the annual West Virginia Press Association Legislative Look Ahead. It's an annual preview and meeting with legislative leaders with 4 panels discussing the top issues. We also, later in the session, the Press Association hosts a media social to give legislators and business leaders a chance to talk about where we are at that point in the session. And that's followed up with a legislative breakfast where we again have formal presentations from legislators about where we are in this session and what bills are moving. So there's a lot coming up both in the next 60 days before the session and then certainly the 60 days of the session. And West Virginia Press InSight looks forward to working with you on that.
Hi, I'm Tom Hunter.
And I'm Betsy DeBoer, and this is West Virginia Press InSight.
Approximately once a month during the period between regular state legislative sessions, the interim period, legislators gather for committee meetings. Well, thanks to technology, broadband, and the legislature's support of open meetings, these interim meetings are open to the public and available to watch online at wvlegislature.gov.
The remaining 2019 interim meetings are scheduled for November 18th and 19th, as well as December 16th and 17th. Legislators most recently met on September 23rd through the 25th. Among the presentations during one committee meeting was support for development of an Office of Outdoor Recreation to maximize the economic impact of the ATV trails and other outdoor activities in West Virginia.
Thank you, Chairman Maynard, Chairman Cowles, and distinguished members of the Joint Committee. My name is Scott Schlegel. I'm the Senior Vice President of Government Relations for the Motorcycle Industry Council, known as MIC, the Specialty Vehicle Institute of America, known as SVIA, and the Recreational Off-Highway Vehicle Association, known as ROVA. SVIA, MIC, and ROVA are member associations representing motorcycle, all-terrain vehicle, and recreational off-highway vehicle manufacturers, distributors, retailers, and allied trades in the power sports industry. Our members include companies such as Can-Am, Honda, Kawasaki, Polaris, Suzuki, Textron, Yamaha, among others. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss with you today the economic benefit of off-highway vehicle recreation and trail access. When states create OHV riding areas, the communities around them benefit from the increased economic development. Hotels, motels, gas stations, restaurants, grocery stores, and power sports dealerships all benefit financially from the enthusiasts who visit them. And the state collects gas taxes, sales taxes, and employment taxes. And the program is a valuable funding source for trail development and maintenance. The RTP needs to be reauthorized in the highway bill next year, and we will be reaching out to your congressional delegation to request their support. Outdoor recreation contributes significantly to the state economies. According to a report by the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis that was released just last Friday, the outdoor recreation economy accounts for 2.2% of the United States gross domestic product. While that 2.2% might not sound like much, it signifies that the outdoor recreation economy is larger than the mining industry, which is 1.4% of GDP, and larger than the chemical product manufacturing sector, which is 1.8% of GDP, both sectors of which are important to West Virginia. In fact, outdoor recreation is now tied with broadcasting and telecommunications at 2.2% of GDP. Outdoor recreation is also growing faster than the economy as a whole. In 2017, which is the most recent year available through the BEA study, real GDP grew at a pace of 2.4%, whereas outdoor recreation grew at a pace of 3.9%, a full 1.5% higher.
Interim committees usually are joint committees with members of both the West Virginia Senate and the West Virginia House of Delegates. They provide a forum for the study of issues relevant to the future of the state and also to monitor the effects of current and recently passed legislation. Also during interims, possible legislation is reviewed. Bills are drafted, studied, and rewritten. Bills that did not pass during the previous session may be revisited, and bills previously rejected can be reconsidered for possible reintroduction.
In addition to watching the meetings live, you can check the schedule, review the agendas, and check the membership of each committee. Videos of meetings held in Senate chambers are also archived for viewing at a later time. To see the topics and schedule, go to wvlegislature.gov. Click on Audio Video under Senate or House to view the meetings. Hi, I'm Betsy DeBoer.
And I'm Tom Hunter, and this is West Virginia Press InSight.
Twice a year, West Virginia University invites news media from across the state to a day-long academic media day. At each Media Day, WVU features a series of presentations from educators and researchers on topics of interest to West Virginians.
One of the biggest jobs we have at University Relations here at WVU is connecting members of the media with faculty and other experts on our campus. One of the ways we do that is through something called Academic Media Days. You're probably familiar with media days for your favorite athletic team. For example, Bob Huggins just traveled to the Big 12 Media Days, fielding questions talking about the upcoming season. Well, that's how we designed Academic Media Day. But instead of talking about athletics, we're focused on academics. We've set up a website, academicmediaday.wvu.edu, with a lot of information about what Academic Media Day is, as well as information about past Academic Media Days. As we say, it's where stories start, and it's really designed to connect members of the media with faculty and other experts on a wide range of topics. So how does an Academic Media Day work? Well, members of the media come to campus for one day, and each faculty member or expert spends about 20 minutes talking about their area of work. Then we take a series of breaks throughout the day, and during that time, members of the media have the opportunity to talk one-on-one with those experts. All of the faculty presentations are uploaded to the website so members of the media can go back and refer to them if they need to. We also have a way for members of the media to find an expert anytime. It's our experts database at WVU today. It's experts.wvu.edu. You can just type in opioid and a list of experts at West Virginia University who are doing work or conducting research related to opioids will come up. You can find information about that expert, a downloadable photograph to use, as well as other materials. You'll also find direct contact information for that particular expert, so you can reach out to that expert and start your work. We also encourage members of the media to bookmark wvutoday.wvu.edu. It's our homepage, and you can access the experts database right from this website. Just scroll down on the main page and you'll find an expert, and you can start your search right away. You'll also find a link in the top right corner of our homepage for the WVU Today Media Center. It's in bright blue. If you click that, it takes you to our media center designed specifically for members of the media. You'll find our stories, story pitches, our expert pitches, which, by the way, are built from our experts database. And if you scroll on down the page, you'll find additional resources, including some important links, downloadable photos, and a bank of videos. And I want to give a big thank you to the West Virginia Press Association for sharing information about these resources from WVU. They're available for everyone, and we appreciate it.
In October, the topics were on aspects of West Virginia's economy. At one of the sessions, Keith Jackson, Dean of the College of Creative Arts, spoke about the arts as a key to population growth and retention. He spoke about how the qualities that successful artists have, adaptability, the ability to have fun but know when it's time for business, understanding teamwork, and valuing time are the same qualities needed to build communities and attract population. Also, artists really understand the gig economy.
Jackson noted that some of the best areas to develop the arts in West Virginia are in Thomas, Shepherdstown, Elkins, Morgantown, Lewisburg, and Charleston.
The director of the West Virginia Water Research Institute addressed how extracting rare earth elements and minerals from mine drainage, that orange sludge common in coal mining regions, can be economically beneficial and clean up our streams at the same time. The United States uses about 15,000 tons of rare earth elements per year to power smartphones and televisions, as well as medical and defense equipment.
Most of those minerals are now imported, mostly from China. Turns out one place that they're found is in a coal and coal byproducts. In one particular half-acre sludge pond, the Water Research Institute's team extracted $365,000 worth of rare earth and critical minerals. WVU's West Virginia Water Research Institute has been awarded more than $6 million to develop this industry.
In a session on the increasing importance of cybersecurity, a recent study was quoted noting 872 job openings in West Virginia for cybersecurity experts. West Virginia Forward specifically targets cybersecurity as an economic growth area for the state and points out the need to educate West Virginians to meet that demand. The experts and their data at Academic Media Day are available for all West Virginia media and can help reporters provide insights and details in their reporting.
Hi, I'm Betsy DeBoer, and this is West Virginia Press InSight. It's November in West Virginia. The fall foliage is finishing up, and the snow hasn't really started. What to do? Did you know the Hatfield-McCoy Trail System is open 365 days a year? Late fall is a great time to get your ATV on the trail. Visit wvtourism.com or trailsheaven.com for more information.
Hi, I'm Don Smith, Executive Director of the West Virginia Press Association, and today we're talking with Linda Bunn, Associate State Director for West Virginia AARP, and we're here to discuss their Fraud Watch program. Welcome, Linda.
Thanks for having me.
Fraud and scams are always a big issue, but especially around the holidays, end of the year, we seem to hear more about that. Tell us about AARP's concern and why you're so involved with this.
So way back in 1958, when Ethel Percy Andrus started AARP, one of the things she wanted to do was to make sure that people had choices as they age. Well, that requires financial stability, and there's nothing worse for financial stability than having your nest egg taken away by a con artist. So AARP has always really been in the anti-fraud business because it's so important for making good choices.
Right. We were talking a little before we came on air, and I thought it was very interesting what you said. We tend to think of con artists working and targeting seniors and people, older people, but you said it's not necessarily just because of age.
Right, it's not because people are naive or they just don't know any better. Con men are smart. I mean, that's how they separate us from our money. They have lots of techniques. But if you're looking at who you're going to target, I'm 60 plus. I have a child that's in college. If you're a smart scammer, who are you going to pick? Somebody that has nothing but debt and a used car, or somebody who's been working a lifetime to set away money for retirement, who has assets, who has a bank account, who has a house. So we are likely targets because we have assets.
So not necessarily easier target, just a better target.
Right. And one of the things that scam artists are really, really good at are targeting individuals with scams that are specially tailored for them. So they're not going to try to get me in a scam that would work on a 19-year-old. They're going to target and tailor that scam so that it attracts me, so that it gets my interest, so that I am intrigued and I want to explore.
Well, that makes sense. Most of the scams and fraud things that I've seen personally have been tied to my computer, which is a big part of my work and my life. So that's where they try to panic me and try to make a bad decision. So that fits in with what you're saying. AARP has a Fraud Watch network,
Exactly.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great place to go for resources and to look and to be informed about what's going on. And I've spent some time on it, and it's educational.
It really is.
I picked out a couple questions, 3 to be exact, that I want to ask you about and to see how they relate to West Virginia and what you think. One thing I noted was there's a Federal Trade Commission report that says Americans 60 and older were 5 times more likely to fall victim to tech support scams than younger adults. Now, we talked about why maybe older people are targeted, but do you see that holding true in terms of West Virginia? Is that a big area?
Yeah, sadly, those numbers really do hold true in West Virginia as well as across the United States. And in addition to the thing that we talked about targeting somebody who has more assets, there's more layers to this if we unpack it. If you look, older adults are a little bit less confident in their computer skills. I mean, again, using my college student as an example, that's what she grew up with. I mean, that's their life is on their computer and on their devices. And we are just a little bit more tangential than that. And so since we're just a little bit more off base, then that makes it a good scam for us, because that's what scammers want. They want you to be unsure about a thing, whether they put you there or whether you're already there before they scam you. I do make a little joke when I talk to groups, and I say, you know, with the tech support scams and they say that Microsoft is calling you, do you really think that Bill Gates is laying awake at night worried about your computers so much that he calls you? Because that's the thing, is these folks don't call. They don't call you. They don't. How would they know that you have a virus on your computer and associate it with a phone number, right? But the thing about it is, when somebody calls you and says you're in trouble, you need to act quickly. First, that should ring a bell in your head that says, wait a second, do I need to act quickly? That's one of the biggest devices that scam artists use, is making you do things quickly before you can think them out, right? And so that's another thing. And going back to your original question, one of the other reasons that scammers tend to target people that are a little older is that we get embarrassed. We get embarrassed when we get scammed.
Right.
And if you notice, the FTC data showed that the older you are, the bigger the amount that's taken, and also the less likely that you are to report. Well, imagine that you're 85 years old and you've just lost a ton of money to a scammer. What might that also lead to? The loss of your independence.
Right.
And so if I'm going to evaluate the loss of my independence versus a couple of $1,000s that I lost, then I might just swallow that just so that I can keep
Not talk about it, not share the news, not have everybody worrying about your ability.
Right.
Makes sense.
So that makes that target on our backs even bigger. So,
Very good.
yeah.
There is such a thing as the AARP Fraud Watch Network hotline.
Sure.
What are the benefits of that for West Virginians? How's that work?
So there's two aspects of the AARP Fraud Watch Network. One is by telephone, and that's that hotline that you were talking about. And the nice thing about the hotline, especially for folks that aren't maybe not as comfortable with being online, they have the ability to reach out, and touch somebody by phone. And who they talk to are our volunteers. And it's lovely because for a lot of different reasons. Number one, you can really get tips on how to avoid scams to begin with. You can get concrete steps on how to, nobody is scam proof, but you can certainly make yourself a harder target than somebody else. And then if unfortunately you have been scammed, then there are steps that they can help you with to get you through the process of reporting it and maybe getting your money back. It also interlinks you with law enforcement across the country. There's translation services available. And one of the nice things about it is you're able to talk to somebody, and most of our volunteers have been through it. And so it's somebody that's a peer that understands what you're going through and wants nothing but to help you and help your family.
Right.
So,
and as I understand it too, Linda, it also helps build that database of what scams are going on.
It absolutely does, because that's the other aspect to it. So whether it's the phone line or going online to the website, we work with law enforcement agencies, the Justice Department, and also with the local attorneys general, to not only warn people about scams that are in their area, but also to track trends so that we know exactly what's going on. So the thing about the world that we live in today is that you can cover an awful lot of space with just a phone or the internet. And so people are able to be scammed all over the state, all over the country. So this really helps to track those trends. Whereas before, the police could go to a neighborhood and the snake oil guy had just come into town, and you knew that he hit this house and this house and this house. It's much more disparate now. And so it's really important to make those reports so that law enforcement can piece it together and put out warnings and tell people. That's the other thing about the website. The website is, I call it the world's largest neighborhood watch. So just like if somebody came to my house and tried to scam me, I would tell my friends and my neighbors and the ladies at church and say, hey, look out for this number, or look out for this guy, he's on his way. So with today's digital age, I can go on the Fraud Watch Network and put out that same alert and alert everybody that there's somebody that's trying to scam us. And so it's kind of like a neighborhood watch on a digital scale.
Great, great. Like I say, I've had scam attempts recently where my computer screen locked up, and it seemed to lock up, and actually I realized that I'd went across something that popped up a scam, and it made the screen look full, and I couldn't see the mouse, but it was actually there. But it said, your computer's locked, don't restart, call this number. And it took a few moments, but I realized it was a scam. I always hear okay, when something like that happens and you need to start changing your passwords. Don't leave your passwords, don't use the same password. But I'll be honest, it's a pain.
It is.
It's a pain to do it, it's a pain to remember them. But I noticed on the AARP Fraud Watch site that it talks about the need to do that, but also how to manage your passwords and make it a little easier. And tell us a little about that. What can we do?
Sure, what we recommend is you use a password management tool. So it's an app or it's a program that you can get that helps you manage those passwords. And so you really do have to have strong passwords. And I know everybody wants to have an easy one that they can remember and use the same one, whether it's on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever. You just can't. Because then what happens is once one gets compromised, they're all compromised because there's only one. So if you have a different one and you make them very complex, then it's really difficult to go cross platforms and cross programs and get you everywhere, including your bank account. And so what we recommend is a password management tool. They're free. You can find them out there. And I'm going to list off 6 of them so that it doesn't look like I'm picking any favorites. Dashlane, 1Password, RoboForm, LastPass, Keeper, TrueKey. These are all different ones that are out there, and you can go do a search on them. And the way they work is it's kind of like a digital locker for your passwords.
Okay.
So all you really need to remember is that 1Password to get into the locker. So you're
Right.
back to 1Password, and then it helps manage all those different passwords. And then once you get into Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, it helps you get into those programs.
Okay.
But it's secure digitally. So, and there's some other really good things about those. Number one, it's going to help you get much more complicated passwords for those other things,
Right.
so that they're harder to break through. And number two, there's ways that you can put surrogates on there, because you never know what could happen and you go into the hospital or you're sick or something, and nobody can get into anything that you have. So if you designate a surrogate, like you would a beneficiary
Right.
on your insurance, then somebody can get into all your files and all your
Information.
locked information, but it's somebody that you chose.
Yeah, I mean, insurance, newspaper subscriptions, all my things are online, have passwords.
Right.
And you can pay your bills and all of your bank. So having that and having somebody as a backup if you're in an accident, if you're in the hospital. Makes
Exactly.
a lot of sense. Well, Linda, thank you. Great advice. I guess that our viewers can go to the website
Absolutely.
and learn, and there's updates on a regular basis, correct?
There are, and there's videos, and sometimes they're fun, and sometimes they're serious, and sometimes they really make a deep point about how you can protect yourself and what could happen to you if you're not secure in your data or all the dealings that you have. So there's some great tips out there, the great resources, and it's also a way to connect with other people who are in a similar circumstance.
All right. Well, Linda, thank you for your advice.